And I'm absolutely honored that that is what our next speaker addresses, because she is an incredible woman. She's the founder of Soul Powered Leaders. She's a Kingdom Factor coach and the creator of No More Split System, a framework that helps high capacity leaders restore internal coherence under pressure. Well, that sounds like alignment to me. And whether we're prepared to admit it or not, because most leaders aren't, that happens. So we get to build up the awareness. So I am honored and privileged to have Tess Vergara here to share her message with us. And then I'll be back after that to tell you a little more about me. The stage is yours, Tess.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Big thank you to you, Nikki, for hosting this wonderful summit. And thank you for the whole team behind the Spirit Led Success Summit. Uh, this is just an amazing opportunity to shift years of striving into a season of sustainable leadership. And thank you all, everyone who are here in this session. Thank you so much. Welcome to the quiet collapse of capable leaders when obedience starts to feel like exhaustion. And I know I'm speaking to you all who have been faithful. You've done wonderful things you believe God has asked you to do, and you've built something real. And I'm thinking you're staying on because obedience starts to feel harder and heavier. And that's the point of this summit, right? At some point, obedience starts to feel like exhaustion in a way that doesn't make sense because we're all in, right? So drop a yes in the chat if any of this resonates, that what used to feel clear now takes effort. What used to feel obvious now takes time. What used to feel steady now feels heavy. And because you're responsible, you don't stop. And because you're still functioning, you don't call it a problem. But what if it doesn't have to be that case? Like, what if nothing is wrong with your obedience, your leadership, your calling? In the next few minutes, in whatever time I have, I want to help you see what's actually happening behind the quiet collapse of capable, faithful leaders. Because it happened to me. Because what do you do when something inside stops working the way it used to? You do what high functioning leaders do, right? You push harder, you increase discipline, and still it doesn't resolve. Why is that? Because you're solving the wrong problem. Scripture tells us that a house divided cannot stand. We often apply that externally to teams, to organizations, to partnerships. But what if the most dangerous place division shows up is inside the leader? In Romans 7, Paul says, I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do. What I hate, I do. Like, who resonates with that? And what he's describing is internal division in someone who can see the contradiction inside himself. And then he says, I delight in the law in my inner being, but I see another law at work in me. Now we have two things operating at once, two directions, two drivers. And most people read that and assume that's just the Christian life, an ongoing struggle. That's not what he's saying. He's naming the split in leadership. And what I see over and over is that strong leaders don't collapse because they can't handle pressure. They collapse because they keep pushing through while split. And this is where a lot of leaders are. You can feel it, you know something is off, and because you're capable, you override that feeling. And so I drop, I guess, in the comments if that sounds familiar. A house divided cannot stand until something shifts. Obedience itself starts to feel like exhaustion. And for some like myself, that shift doesn't happen. For me, it didn't happen until my collapse. Leaders still lead, leaders still produce. And from the outside, everything looks great, everything looks intact. But inside, there's an inner war going on. So the issue isn't you've lost discipline or you've lost your calling. The issue is your leadership is no longer operating as one. And we've been taught to interpret pressure as something to overcome, to push through, stay strong, right? Yeah, just keep going. And when that happens, when you're already split, when you already have that war inside of you, leadership fragments. You still lead, you can still produce. You're so very effective, but internally you are carrying it in pieces. And that is where exhaustion comes from. It's like a car with four wheels going in opposite directions. You're spinning your wheels, you're going nowhere while draining the battery inside. And similarly, the system in your leadership, your thinking, your emotions, your body, your spiritual direction, they're all part of how you lead. Again, what do you do when you're out of alignment? You double down, you control more, you overthink, you push even harder while everything in you is divided. And that's why nothing gets resolved because you cannot solve internal division with more force. Something has to realign. In Romans 7, Paul names it. Paul names the split. But in chapter 8, something shifts. He says, there is now no condemnation, not because the struggle disappeared, but what was divided starts coming back into alignment, into agreement. They're now cooperating, all your parts. And I experienced this firsthand. I had a complete breakdown, like I mentioned earlier. A doctor prescribed antidepressants, and everything in me said no. So I faced it, no medication, no numbing with alcohol, no escaping it, just a real come to Jesus moment. And it was a long one. And what I realized through that excruciating dark night of the soul is I wasn't broken. I was divided. I remember praying, and I still pray this: God, please make me whole again. And what changed was everything inside started working together again. Felt lighter. It's not as heavy. It's not as confusing. So you can improve everything, but a house divided cannot stand. The issue is in skills, strength, strategy, or capability. It's coherence under pressure, not the absence of pressure. We will always have pressure, but the ability to remain whole, undivided while you're in it. So if your calling starts to feel exhausting, you're carrying more responsibility from a system that is internally divided. That's why it feels like I'm doing everything right. Something is off. And so here's what I want you to see clearly. If it feels off, it's because your leadership is operating from a split. And the moment you see that internal division clearly, everything changes. Then you stop misdiagnosing yourself. You stop trying to optimizing what is actually misaligned. You begin to ask a different question. Where is my house divided? Where am I no longer operating as one? And that's the work I do. And I show you exactly what that split is and how to bring back into alignment so you can lead at full capacity without strain. And my gift to you from this session is the leadership split diagnostic, because recognizing the split is the first step. Because once you see that, everything changes. You stop blaming yourself. You stop trying to force alignment. You stop adding more on top of what's already strained. And you start recognizing what's already happening. And so when leadership is divided, it becomes exhausting to carry. But when you see the split, when you see that you're operating from a split and not from wholeness, then you'll understand why. You can begin to understand why and not blame yourself. And so that's exactly why I created the leadership split diagnostic. That's what you're going to get from this session. That diagnostic will help you see exactly where your leadership is split. So the mind is not working so hard, overthinking. The emotion is not trying to put it together or numb itself. The body is not carrying tension, right? And the spirit is clear and free, and you're able to follow Christ, right? Because that is what Romans 8 is about. It's allowing what's been divided to come back into agreement under Christ. And that's where leadership becomes whole again. And I have time to answer questions if you have questions.
And I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but does anybody have a question for Tess? I have one. Tess,
Yes.
beautifully shared, and thank you for your vulnerability. My question for you is, what is it that shifted you from that place that gave you the resilience to hang in
Mm,
there and to shift to God? Because I know in those dark moments, that isn't always the first thing we
no,
see.
no. I heard my mind talking, going to the dark places, not wanting to be here anymore. Emotionally, I was so shut down. I just felt so much like a victim. I didn't want to go on anymore. I wanted out of here. Um, Physically, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. And my prayer was, I have a Sacred Heart of Jesus on the wall. And I said, I'm gonna cry saying this. And this happened back in 2012, darkest night of my soul. I had a powwow with Jesus. I said, you take away this pain, or you take away my life. And he took away the pain. It wasn't an easy process, but this is what I'm revealing now is you can't let your mind lead alone, or your emotions to lead alone, or your physical body to lead alone to the point of exhaustion, or even the spirit bypassing your all other parts. It's all four parts integrated, working together in coordination, in agreement. in oneness with Christ. So that's the,
Thank you. And I see Anne put in the chat there, what helps? I don't know if that answers your question, Anne, or if you would like to unmute and ask.
yeah. Oh, there's so many things that helps. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think the one thing that we get from this amazing gift that Tess is giving, we get to have this diagnostic so that we can become aware, because the awareness allows us to then move. And
Right.
one of our speakers who is speaking tomorrow recently said, you cannot heal what isn't revealed.
That is true.
And
And this
this is,
diagnostic, yeah, will
does that.
reveal exactly which of your parts is actually overstrained and overloaded. And you start from there. But if there's one thing you'd like to slow down the mind, because that the mind is the one that tries to control that. And then for me, and the pattern might be different for everybody. Once I There was a point that all I had to listen was podcasts, but back then there were no podcasts, right? It's a self-improvement talks, inner healing talks. And so I was listening to all the inspirational leaders out there 24/7 so that I don't listen to my mind who wants out of here. So I had to literally stop that overload in my mind. I gave my mind permission not to overthink. I got this. Jesus got me. Jesus got my back. Jesus driving the wheel. Whatever it is that makes it true for you. If it's your body, take a rest. If it's your emotion, open up. Like if you hear my name, your name called, open up your heart. I'm sorry, I think I may have butchered that. But that was, if you hear me call your name, open up your heart. Don't harden your heart. And so it was all happening for me at the same time when that happened to me back in 2012. But the part that was leading me was the spirit, the spiritual. And that was the part that I turned off because I was a single mom and I had to be practical. I had to be put food on the table. I was an accountant, so my mental capacity was overloaded. I brought homework. So you have to really look at your own situation. And with the diagnostics, you will be able to detect which of your parts is overloaded and you can start from there.
Yeah. And I love that you are so vulnerable and say, this is an area of life that leaders, high capacity leaders, don't
Mm-hmm.
like to admit. Put on that front. And yet, God calls us to take every thought captive. And meanwhile, our brains are giving us all these thoughts, and we're going, how do I deal with them? Well, this diagnostic is going to help you,
Yeah.
because you know what? When we are building for God and with God, it's not just about our bodies and the building and the structure. It's not just about our health. It's not just about our mind. Just as you said, Tess, God has made us complete.
Yes.
We cannot leave parts behind. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you addressed this so powerfully. So
Yes. Thank you.
I'm,
Yeah, because when
I'm,
we're split up, the Holy Spirit can try can try knock knock knock. Nobody's
yeah,
there. Because we're all split up, we're disjointed all over the place. You can feel your energy. For me, it was scattered. I was fractured a million pieces. I was nowhere. I wasn't even here. I was, no, I
right.
wanted escape. um
And and it's not a question of when things get tough, stop what you're doing. That is not
no,
what we're saying at all. We're saying when there is a
no.
situation, address it, but address it with God. Hear the Spirit. Put
Yeah.
what you know are the things that are not of God aside. And I love that you say that you press in to Jesus. You align to that Father heart. And again, that comes from the intimacy we build with Him because we are whole
Yeah,
beings. We are whole beings. We are
we
not
are
only
whole. Yeah,
spirit, we are not only
yeah,
physical. And when we build a business, that cannot be separate from the rest. So,
absolutely.
any last words or any other questions? I'm just watching the chat here. And I have a question. Tess, are you going to be able to join us on the VIP?
Yes, it's at the top of the hour, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that will be great. And if you've got questions, come and join us there. And again, if you haven't upgraded to the VIP, this is your chance to do so because there is so much here. This is now a library of information you get to have for a lifetime. And I really think there is so much power here. I'm so honored by each and every speaker. So, Tess, thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank you
saying
so
yes to
much.
the summit, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.